Welcome to another edition of Bullet Points. Let's talk 223 versus 5.56. Are they the same and are they interchangeable? So I'm Erik Scarpati with the National Shooting Sports Foundation, and joining me now is Alan Serven and Brian Osowiecki, both from SAAMI. This is the Sporting Arms and Ammunition Manufacturers Institute. It's also known as SAAMI. Guys, I really want to get into the question of, it's probably one of the most popular questions that you guys get asked, as we see it all the time. But it could really be a safety issue is the big thing. So I want to get into that, but before we do, just want to know a little bit more about SAAMI and what you guys do at SAAMI. So Alan, why don't you just let us know your role there?
Sure, Eric, thank you. My name is Alan Serven, and I am the Senior Director of Technical Affairs with SAAMI. My primary role is to coordinate and facilitate the activities of the technical members of the organization, which come from all the manufacturing members of our organization. Our biggest product that most folks would be familiar with are the American National Standards that we publish for the various types of ammunition.
Nice. And Brian, what do you do?
And my name is Brian Osowiecki, and I am the Director of Regulatory Affairs here at SAAMI. And my job is to coordinate and facilitate the Logistics and Regulatory Affairs Committee.
Great. Very technical, but what's the 30,000 foot view of SAAMI, really the elevator pitch of what SAAMI does?
Well, our primary mission is to ensure the interchangeability, reliability, and safety of firearms and ammunition. So by establishing standards for the dimensional characteristics and the pressure levels that a given round of ammunition, say 357 Magnum, would produce, and then at the same time setting the dimensional standards for that chamber and the pressure levels it must withstand, we can ensure that interchangeability and safety.
Great. And interchangeability is where we are with this conversation. So let's really dig into the question. 223 and 5.56, are they interchangeable? Can you answer it for us once and for all, yes or no?
Can I answer it? Yes. Are they interchangeable? It depends.
Okay.
So there's really two parts to this question.
Yeah.
Can I use 223 Remington ammunition in my 5.56?
Right.
So our first line of defense as consumers and shooters is to always look at the markings on the barrel of the firearm. On that barrel, it will be marked the type of ammunition that it is intended to be used with. Now, many firearms built today, particularly MSRs, will be marked both 223 Remington /5.56. And the reason for that is the true 5.56 military chamber in a firearm is looser. That is, it has a longer throat in it. So 223 Remington ammunition built to the Sporting Arms standard in a 223 Remington barrel will produce safe pressures when fired in a 5.56 chamber. Okay. However, the reverse is not true. So ammunition built to the 5.56 standard, when exposed to or fired in a 223 Remington sporting chamber, which is tighter, will actually increase in pressure. Okay. And it will be higher pressure than what the 223 Remington produces and what that barrel is intended to take on a routine basis. Right. So it can overwork the action, damage the buffer tubes, because you're actually getting higher bolt velocity at that point.
Right.
You can also run into issues, most commonly is drop primers getting down into the action of the MSR and jamming up the action.
Yeah, and that's pretty hard to get unstuck.
Yes.
So you mentioned that there was the dual stamping on the barrel, 223, 5.56. What could people assume that actually means? Because you got both stamps on there.
So to me, as a maybe a little bit above average educated consumer in the industry, to me that indicates it actually has the looser 5.56 chamber. Okay. But again, in all things, if there's ever any question, consult the manufacturer of that firearm, right, and ask them the question.
Right. There's the issue of head stamps too. So you have that you're reading the head stamp and you're reading the barrel. Is there any issues that you could come across in that realm, or is that the best thing for you to do?
So that is your number one line of guidance. It is to match the markings on the ammunition with the markings on the barrel. Where that becomes a little problematic when we start talking about military ammunition, true military ammunition does not have a caliber marking on it as sporting ammunition does. So the shooter is a little bit handicapped in that situation in being able to perform that critical step.
Yeah. So this is not the only ammunition, I guess, that has some interchangeability issues, or the fact that you can actually shoot some of this ammunition, in this case the .223 in a 5.56, safely. What other ammunitions are out there that you can actually safely shoot in let's say, a different chambering?
So SAAMI actually has two different publications on our website under publications and advisories where we list interchangeability. We also list interchangeability of names. So the first document, we show a firearm chambered in a certain cartridge is also safe to use this other alternative cartridge. So for example, a firearm chambered in 357 Magnum, it is safe to shoot a 38 Special in it. The second document that we have shows the official SAAMI standardized name, which is what you mentioned when you talked about the marking on the firearm, matching it to the marking on the head stamp. And it also shows names used in the common vernacular. For example, if your firearm is marked 45 Colt, a common name that you hear is 45 Long Colt.
The long Colt.
So the document shows that, you know, a 45 Long Colt would be safe to use in a 45 Colt firearm.
Great. So how about the 308.762? Any issues there?
The 308.762, the general answer is no, with one primary condition. Typically, military firearms intended originally for 7.62 have a higher tolerance for headspace. That is, the amount of room the cartridge has to sit back or to be able to back up in the chamber. The tolerance for sporting arms is tighter, and the ammunition is built with that understanding of it's going to be fired in that tighter chamber. So if you have a firearm marked 7.62, my recommendation would be to have it checked by a qualified gunsmith and ensure that it meets the sporting headspace tolerance, not just the military.
So, Brian, you and I in an earlier conversation had been talking, and one of the other common questions that really comes up is, I have a new design for a cartridge. How does SAAMI approve it?
That is a very common question that we receive. And first off, SAAMI doesn't actually approve new cartridge designs. SAAMI standardizes new cartridge designs.
How does that work?
So in order to standardize a new cartridge at SAAMI, the company must be a voting or associate member of SAAMI in order to introduce that cartridge for standardization. And the reason why is because there are other responsibilities associated with the introduction of the cartridge besides just coming up with a dimensional cartridge and chamber design. So those other responsibilities are producing lots of reference ammunition, which is used to validate ballistic ranges, their ballistic setup. You also have to produce proof ammunition and action-proven dummies, which are used to facilitate the manufacturing of firearms. So for those reasons, we do limit it to just voting and associate members.
Okay. Anything else to add to that?
No, it's been great talking.
Yeah. So, guys, thanks. This is a huge amount of information. I think very helpful for anybody that's watching this. I hope to have you guys back on. We could get some more questions that are out there and really get the audience some answers too. So thanks for joining me today.
Our pleasure.
Our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.